Welcome back, and today we got some fishermen behind me. You see these guys? They're gonna catch some fish right here in the ocean, so they're gonna have some fun today. Hopefully catch some fish for their family. But today we're going to talk about Jim Fishback, the animal. And do you know Jim Fishback? He was a crazy rider and really good. So we're gonna talk about Jim Fishback right now. As a young teen, I remember going to Bottle and Smoke liquor store and picking up Cycle News. I didn't buy it, I was too poor, but I went ahead and read it, and I'd always read about Jim Fishback. He was the animal, and he was racing the desert at the time with Larry Rossler. And he was winning everything. I mean, Jim Fishback was crazy. Fishback ended up saying he got out of the desert racing because when he crashed really good, and there was nobody there to see him but maybe snakes and tortoises. But he wanted to race in front of people, so he switched to speedway eventually. It was like his first year or so. In 1975, they had a national championship at the LA Coliseum. And Fishback was racing, and I sat like the 4th or 5th row back on this certain spot in the track, and Fishback was in this race, and he was riding real hard. I don't think he was going to win the championship, but he was a crazy good rider, and he actually hit the wall. He actually hit the wall, and he flew over the wall, and right in front of me there was this like 86-year-old lady, this old grandma who was like really like old, and Fishback flew over the fence and he landed on this old lady's leg right in front of me. I looked down like, oh my gosh, and the lady's screaming, and Fishback's like, sorry about that, lady. And he gets up and goes back on the track, you know, he's flying over the wall. 3rd row back, Fishback is flying over, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And the lady went to the hospital. She had like a broken leg in like 3 areas. That was like my first partial year of racing speedway in D3 that particular year. And I always said, oh, I don't want to race against Fishback. He's kind of crazy dude. And I practiced during the off season and got pretty good. I started the next year in D2 and just pretty much smoked it, and then they quickly put me in D1. And I'll tell you a race, what happened. My first race was Jim Fishback, the animal. The following season, I advanced fairly quickly to D1, and I ended up winning like 6 handicap main events that year. But one of my first races in D1, I was preparing to get on the track, and I look at all these great riders who the year before I saw in the United States Nationals, and they're just awesome riders, and I'm feeling really like bad because I'm like nobody. I'm waiting for the race to start, and I'm kind of looking around, and I look behind me, and then there's Jim Fishback. He's in my race, and he's looking at me, and he's like, and I said, what the hell is this? And Jim was like ready to eat me up alive, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I got Fishback in my race, and he's like snarling at me, and like smoke is coming from his head, and he just looks like deranged and crazy. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I'm a punk 17-year-old skinny kid, you know, just out there like thrown in first division. And I said, you know, Brian, you gotta ride hard against this guy, because this guy will probably like knock you off the bike, or he'll eat you up. He was really scary. I mean, look at this guy's face. So the race began, and decided I would have to go fast because I had Fishback behind me. I was the 0-yard line or 10-yard line. I wasn't very far markage, and I knew Fishback was back there ready to eat me up. the race got over with and I just blew everyone away. It was really great. And Fishback was way back there. He didn't catch me. And I realized that I ride better when I'm scared and when I feel like I'm being threatened. So every time when I race, I want to feel that adrenaline rush, you know, like they're gonna get me. And so the same with Penhall. I race Penhall. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest rider ever. I was idolizing these guys last year, and then the next year they're all like racing in my race and they're all like looking dirty at me and everything. And I'm like, I am scared because I was just a punky 17-year-old brat, and I was scared out of my mind. And these guys are just fantastic. They're living legends. Later on in like the year 2006 or so, his son Jimmy started racing the little animal. And Jimmy's a fantastic guy. He's a really good friend of mine. I like Jimmy Fishback. He's a cool dude, number 25. And then his papa, Jim, the animal, would always go with him. And I would look at Jim and he would like, and give me that snarly look. And I'm like, what's up, dude, man? But I was a little older in 2006, so I wasn't a punky 17-year-old at that time, so it wasn't quite as bad. But Jim Fishback, I'm sure, didn't like me the whole time. He probably doesn't like me today, but it doesn't matter because I respect these guys. I really like all these legends and all these former Speedway greats, and they're just like my idols. And I have no hard feelings towards anyone. And I'm sure some of these guys don't like you or don't like me, but it doesn't matter. So that's it, that Jim the Animal Fishback story. It was really cool days, and I liked beating those guys whenever I could. So that's it. Like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell.